Paul saw purpose in his pain. And I could say it every single Sunday and it wouldn't get old, is the quote by Rick Warren who says, God never wastes a hurt. He will use that hurt for good. He will use it if we allow Him. And so, look at some of the things that come into our world that kind of cause us to get our purpose out of focus. And that's why I've got that slide up there. Oh, I could put a dozen things up there, whether it's our job or whether it's school or whether it's a relationship. And usually it's the other way around. Jesus is kind of fuzzy and out of focus. And those other things are just glaring at us so big and bold and clear, and it's all we can see. And we need to turn that around and bring Jesus into clear focus, and those other things will begin to become fuzzy and out of focus. And it's not that they aren't there. They're there. But Jesus now becomes in the forefront. But we get busy with stuff. We become critical of other people. We begin to get our priorities wrong and thinking one thing is more important than others. And we get a wrong perspective, and we begin to, or we even stay in these toxic relationships. You realize there are some relationships you shouldn't be in. They're toxic. They're poisoning your spirit. We get out of perspective with worry and negativity, and sometimes our physical health even can get us distracted, and that becomes the most important thing, and that's all we can see. Or it can be money and many other things that come in and snatch that joy. Hebrews chapter 12 and verse 2. I should have that slide as well for that passage. Now, this is interesting. I want to ask you guys some questions. This is where I'm going to get out of where I'm going to do all the talking, and I want to hear some of your thoughts, okay? Because this was a challenging verse to me, where the Hebrew writer says, let us fix our eyes on Jesus. Okay, that whole focus thing, fix our eyes on Jesus. The author and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before Him endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Okay? You got that verse? Now, I've got a question, because there's something up there that doesn't make sense to me. Do you see what it is? I've got it underlined. Why in the world did Jesus see going to a Roman cross as being something that is joyful? He saw beyond the cross? Who said something over here? Love? For what? For Doc and Val and Chuck and all of us in here, right? Huh? He knew what it would do for us. You don't think it was going to be painful? He thought, oh, this ain't going to be too bad, you know. This would be kind of cool hanging up here, you know. My goodness, no. I mean, I can't think of a more tragic, terrible, painful way to die than the Roman crucifixion. Is, you know, mankind is so hideous that they could dream up this way of torturing a person to death. But Jesus said it was joy that was set before Him that caused Him to endure the cross. He looked beyond it. All your answers are exactly right. I mean, we could sit here and we could probably write a book on the idea of the fact that this cross that Jesus was going to, that He saw that as joy because He saw the joyful conclusion. And the joyful conclusion is you, all of us who have put our faith in Jesus Christ, and now we have hope. We don't have to sit here and worry and have our joy taken away from us because we're going to die in this world. But we're going to be with Him eternally. And that made Him joyful. Right? It was the joyful conclusion. Now how about us? And the things that we have to endure, we can endure anything because we're looking to the joyful conclusion of accomplishing God's purpose in my life. I just had a thought. Maybe you think that God has no purpose for your life. Maybe that might be the thing. Maybe you think, I don't have it. Oh my goodness, you're so wrong, and that's a devil's lie. There isn't a single person in this room that God doesn't have a purpose and a plan for your life. Do you realize that's why He created you? To fulfill those purposes and those plans that He has through you. And you, sitting there and there and there and there, you are being guided by God in ways that I can't, or the person next to you can't. God working through you. God has a plan for you. You say, well, I'm going through all this junk. That's okay. That's okay. It's through that junk that God is going to do His greatest work. But do you trust Him? Do you trust Him? Do you trust His purposes? In prayer, do you ever ask Him, Lord, what is your purpose for me in this hardship that I'm going through? Why am I going through this? And how is it filling your purposes? Other people will look at us and they'll see how you handle the different things that you're going through, our common hardships. People will look at you and you're going through a common hardship because you're a human being, and everybody in this world, no matter who they are, is going to face bad stuff. But look how Paul models it. He models it different. And he had emboldened, he had gotten people courageously and fearlessly now preaching the gospel as a direct result of the fact that he was in prison. Because they were looking at him, and you know those jail guards that we talked about? They thought they had Paul in prison, and Paul really had them chained up, right? They saw a different way of handling a bad situation. And as a result of that, he was bringing Christians all throughout the Praetorian Guard, and even Caesar's household were becoming Christians because they saw something different. Here's a key thing. Boy, I tell you what. If we're going to fulfill the purposes of God in our life, we've got to be different. And that doesn't mean you have to, go out and buy I Love Jesus sunglasses, and hang out in the airport and, do all kinds of crazy weird. No. If you just live through the hardships of life in a different way than other people, that will be the greatest attraction to the gospel that anybody's ever seen. By the way, as we go through Philippians, there's a secret here. And I hope and pray that many of you learn the secret here, because it will change your life. It will. No matter what you're going through. What if you get the diagnosis cancer? What if you become bankrupt? What if you lose your job? What if you have the death of a child? What if one of your children kills one of your children? There's just a plethora of junk that can face us. How are we going to deal with it? Because it's not a matter of if, it's just when the bad stuff comes, and it comes at different levels, like different waves coming in from the ocean, and it's like, what are we going to do? Will we be drowned? Or will we rise above? There's a secret. Paul's got a secret throughout this entire 4-chapter, beautiful little letter to the church at Philippi. And I pray, I'm not kidding, I just pray that some of you will figure out the secret. In our weakness, God's power is made manifest. Another passage here, 2 Corinthians, I think I got it. Yeah, 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9. But Paul had this thorn in the flesh, and no one knows what it was. Some thought that maybe he had epilepsy. Some thought that he had various types of seizures. Some thought that he had bad eyesight. They're not really sure, but it was a physical problem that caused him a great deal of pain, and he prayed to God 3 times to remove that physical problem from him. And God said, no. But this is how he said no. He said, no, my grace is sufficient.